Hi guys, and welcome back. And today we get on with building Tamiya's 1/35th scale Tiger 1, the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger 1 SD KFZ 181 Osforang E, which is the late version. And this is a ripper kit. Is kit number 146 with a copyright of 1989. So this is the start of a new project, a diorama which is based on one of my favourite movies and what I think is a fairly iconic scene in that movie. Now, before you all start going, hang on, dickhead, don't start a new project. You've got half a dozen projects on the go that you need to finish, and that's true. But a lot of the work I've been doing lately on the bench has been fairly intricate and fiddly. And a lot of it to do the first encounter diorama base. There was lots of electrical and wiring and the smoke generator, and that was time consuming and enjoyable to learn, but not making model kits. And it's sort of been a little bit the same with the Rorke's drift figures. Lots of fiddly little work in a 28mm scale converting them. So I was desperately feeling the need just to put some plastic together, and there's nothing better than a therapeutic Tamiya 1/35th scale tank to scratch that itch. So the theme of having iconic scenes in my favourite war movies has been bouncing around in my head for ages, and I thought, well, I want to build a kit. I've never built a Tiger before. One of my favourite scenes involves a Tiger and a couple of other smaller vehicles, and I thought, damn it, I'm going to at least start on this, and I might just do the other vehicles as well as a follow-on to this. And we'll see where the mood is after that, what I go on with, or in fact, what you want me to go on with. Certainly feel free to comment below if there's something you'd rather me finish off than continue with this. Anyway, that's enough of me. Let's get on with it. So we'll have a look at the insides of the box and have a look at the instructions first of all. And you've all seen these before if you've ever built a Tamiya kit, so I won't labour over them. They're clear, they're very easy to read. I very rarely ever find an error in the instructions, which means you can sort of proceed with a fair degree of confidence. And by and large, there's very little to comment on here. Gives you a little bit of a blurb about the tank itself as usual. Also includes a little bit of a painting guide in terms of the various camos. They've got some tech tips, which are all pretty basic stuff if you've put anything together before. And then into the plastic. So there's 3 sprues of the individual track lengths, which requires a little bit of time, not complicated, but requires a little bit of time, but they're very nicely moulded. They look pretty tidy, so should come out well when it's all finished. Probably my only concern is the injection pin marks, which are quite prevalent on them, so they will, where they're seen, require a little bit of work to clean them up. Then we've got 2 sprues of wheels. Typical Tamiya detail, looks really nice, very clean moulding, no flash, just exactly what you'd expect in a Tamiya kit. Onto the one of the main sprues, and again very cleanly moulded, no flash, some quite good detail. The smaller parts all very nice. 2-part plastic gun barrel, but that'll clean up alright with a little bit of work. Tow ropes, nice little bit of detail there. Some side moulding, slide moulding for the rear exhausts. Then we've got the upper hull and the turret sprue largely. And very nice detail around the engine vents and grates. Top of the turret. Rear plate. At the Tamiya figure, which I won't be using because the tank is all buttoned up in this movie. Typical Tamiya faces. Probably the weakest part of their offering is the faces. They all look like the same guy to me. The lower hull, which is the bathtub variety. But a nice little show of detail there that you probably won't see once it's all made up. Decals look really nice, and you get an extra bonus set down the bottom, but they're quite clear and in registration, so I don't think I'll be using those to reflect the tank in this movie, but they're handy to have in the spares box. So without further ado, let's get into the build. So on with the build and the traditional first cut of the sprue. Now, one of the things I was a little bit disappointed about was the box art shows this to have the Zimmerit, but in fact it doesn't. So I got the Tamiya aftermarket Zimmerit stickers. Never used these before. In fact, I've never done any Zimmerit before. So very nice detail, very fine. And these are just basically stickers, which you need to cut out carefully and apply to the part. Now, the instructions in the kit, the Tamiya kit, actually show where the Zimmerit needs to go, as do the instructions that come with this Zimmerit. So it's very difficult to get it wrong, and much to my surprise, well, actually, I tell a lie, much to my surprise, I did get it wrong. There's a thicker, coarser option of Zimmerit, and I managed to mix and match them at one stage, but that was simple enough to peel it off and replace it. So peels off very easily. I'd given the surfaces a wipe down with some isopropyl alcohol, so they were nice and clean, and very hard to get this in place and not knock the camera out of the way. But it's very forgiving as well, so you can put it on, but if it's not quite right, it will peel off quite comfortably. Well, in the short term anyway. I'm not sure how it would go after it has been there for a long time. But it went on pretty easily and generally fitted quite nicely. So having got all the Zim on with the construction, and this is the gluing of the plastic to the plastic, so nothing revolutionary here. By and large, where I can, I like to dry fit the pieces and then just wick some of the extra thin glue into place. And putting on these little fellas is very easy with this particular kit, and like most Tamiya kits, because they have a little pin. Now I like to use the Revell glue here. It's a slightly slower drying time, but it also fine with like bulk processing of gluing it. The extra thin dries before you can get to the last one, so this sort of just gives you more time to play. And as you can see there, you really can't go wrong because they've got a little guide hole that it clicks into to make sure that all of these are perfectly even and nice and level. Now, Tamiya's engineering is very, very good, and they've almost made it idiot-proof. You virtually can't put a piece around the wrong way in the right place because they've got various guides built into them, and if you're struggling, you really just need to twist it around like this until it locks, and then you know you're right. Just doing the wheels now, and that's pretty obvious. I'll pop back in a minute with a bit of an explanation about cleanup. Otherwise, have a little bit of music. And just a thing I do to speed up the cleanup process is when you've got double wheels that join together, I always glue them and then twist them around so that the two sprue contact points are lined up with each other. That just means it's easier when you're sanding that you're hitting the two spots at the same time. And in spite of the fact that I had them all laid out carefully and I had little post-it notes telling me which ones were which, those amongst you with keener eyesight will realise that I did my first gluing and had them wrong. Luckily, when I literally looked at them 5 seconds later, I realised I got them wrong and I had time to get them off and back around in the right order, so disaster averted. So I just thought I'd focus on this because it's a bit of a trap for young players. The tracks are on 3 sprues and they're labelled here as D1. And I look at the sprue and I see a whole bunch of tracks that all look exactly the same, so I assume they're all D1. But surprise, surprise, there's some D2s snuck in one of the corners. And I did not realise that. And of course, if I'd read further through the instructions in advance, I would have realised that the D2s are the ones that have got these little pins on them that go on the side of the turret. And of course I didn't realise that, so when I'd made the first run of tracks, I'd incorporated a couple of D2s in there, and it didn't sit flat, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't sitting flat. And I thought, what are these stupid little sticks poking out? And I promptly cut them off and sanded them away, and I thought that was strange. And then when I got to build the turret later on, I realised, well, hang on, what are these D2 things? Anyway, just through dumbass luck, I had enough D2s that I hadn't cut off the sprue and incorporated in the track run, and I got away with it. But there's a lesson to read through the instructions first. Now, what I'm doing here is just making a jig. Tamiya provide you with a couple of guide rails, and I thought, well, I might make a proper job of this, and glued them down to some, I think, 1 mil or 0.5, I can't remember, plastic card, and then just stuck one in at the end so that they stayed level all the way along. So that was about a 5-minute job to do that, and not a very big investment in cost. And then, of course, before gluing them all together, there's these annoying injection pin marks. So they need to be sanded out. And look, I was a bit slack. I just sanded the outside ones that would be visible, and basically just enough to do the bottom ones and the curved ends, not the top one. So super lazy, but it took ages.
Approximately 10 hours later.
And that's actually not exaggerating. I reckon it was about 10 hours to get them all cleaned up, ready to start gluing. So have a look at this sped up and be back in a little while. So you'll notice I used the Revel contactor glue again for the tracks, and that's a preference thing because it gives you longer drying time and gives you plenty of opportunity to get the bend around the wheels and everything right. There's just one little piece of customizing required here, which is almost insignificant, but I thought I'd include it, and that is the drilling of a hole for the late version here. So just went in with the handy dandy Dremel, which looks a bit blunt as I watch this back. Cleaned off any of the burr out the back, and then just used a pin which was the same size to make sure the hole was nice and clear. Pretty straightforward. So everything went together really smoothly, and this really did satisfy my need to just put a kit together. Didn't have to think too hard about it, except for the tracks, I admit, which I didn't quite get right. But yeah, Tamiya kit, pleasure to put together, and it was just quite therapeutic, really, given all some of the more complex stuff I'd done. So just getting all the little gribbly bits together now, and the final bits and bobs in readiness for undercoating. So we're in the home stretch now, not that much more to go. So there are some really tiny little plastic parts that represent what the tracks are affixed to on the turret, and I wanted to make sure I had them in the right place, but I didn't want to glue the tracks on at this stage because I want to paint them separately to the camo scheme of the tank. So just stuck them on where they should be with a little bit of tape and made sure I got my positioning right. So there are a few holes on the top deck, and that's for the tow cables and probably some of the bits and bobs. I am going to use one of the tow cables, but I'm going to use it on the side rather than on the top, because the tank I'm trying to represent doesn't show that it has tow cables on the top. So just using a little bit of the Aves 2-part epoxy putty. If you didn't know already, I love this stuff because it is quite reliable and fills up holes nicely and what have you. But with a little bit of water, you can do a huge amount of smoothing, and then with a Q-tip clean that up. And it literally requires no sanding, which is great. And just here, same approach with the barrel, joining it together, lots and lots of sanding, a little bit of filling in a couple of places, probably more to my overzealousness than anything else. And then there it is, ready to rock and roll to receive some undercoat. And yes, the tracks are deliberately like that so I can slide them in from both ends and then just join them in the middle. And this is almost my favourite time, is spraying the undercoat, which I know sounds a bit weird. Just using the Vallejo Grey acrylic surface primer, which I like quite a lot and tend to use pretty much all the time. And I was wondering how the decal stickers would take the paint and the undercoat, but it didn't seem to have any issues whatsoever. And then I hit the tracks up with a MIG acrylic rot bronze just to get that fundamental underlying colour of rust in there. This tank has seen a bit of service in the movie that I'm depicting, so there's a fair bit of rust in play, I think. And look, that's it. So a couple of laps of the magic spinning wheel and some close-up photos. Fabulous kit to build, really enjoyed it. Putting the Zimmerit on was not all that difficult, so I was happy with that. And just, yeah, look, it's a nice looking kit, it's a nice looking tank, the Tiger tank. So I thought we might have a little bit of fun in terms of your participation as this dio unfolds. So it's an iconic scene from one of my favourite war movies. There's a couple of other vehicles to come, and they might even get done next, and a few figures as well. So what I thought we might do is, if you want to have a crack in the comments at guessing what movie and what particular scene, and I'll neither confirm nor deny this until it gets to the point where it becomes obvious what the answer is, and everyone who is alive with a valid answer will go in the draw for a prize. And I think that will be celebrating in a couple of months' time, potentially 5,000 subscribers. So you've got to be in it to win it, and I would be really looking forward to all your comments. So a few still pictures after the next lap around the magic spinning wheel. So again, thanks for watching. Take care, everybody, and really look forward to your comments. Catch you in the next one. So if you like this video, hit the thumbs up and share. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and ding the donger. And of course, leave a comment because I love reading them. Cheers!